I'm glad you're at work. I'm watching the Browns on Friday, and, I came away impressed, kind of like everyone else, with Shedeur Sanders, and I got to thinking, TJ, what are we doing? Just go ahead and make him QB1 going forward. What are we waiting for?
Come on, Tom.
We know how this is going to end. You really want 87-year-old Joe Flacco out there if you're a Browns fan? No, nothing about Joe Flacco, all due respect to the comeback player of the year. He is not inspiring or uplifting. Go with the kid, see what you got.
Here's part of the issue. Ultimately, it's up to coaches to play the best guy. Because if you don't play the player who gives you the best chance to win, regardless of what they're being paid, regardless of where they were drafted, regardless of what your plan was, if you don't do that, the locker room is going to know. The locker room is going to know if you're not playing the guy who gives you the best chance to win.
No doubt.
And quarterback is the one position in which you can make a sea change. Here's part of the complication. And this goes for Dylan Gabriel as well as Shedeur Sanders. And I've said it repeatedly on this show. The hardest outcome for the Browns was going to be starting one of these rookies. And there's a couple reasons for that. One being both these guys, based on the style of offense they played in college, and Shedeur probably had more NFL stuff, but we saw Bo Nix last year coming out of that Oregon offense and made a pretty quick transition. Dylan Gabriel, if you're betting the upside on him,
he was a Heisman finalist.
It's that he's mini Bo Nix.
Yeah.
He's pint-size nesting doll Bo Nix, right?
I like that.
With Shedeur, it's that you can quickly get him up to speed and playing on time and understanding the offense. And he did a pretty good job of that. Again, other than the play where he scrambled 30 yards backwards and threw it away on a 4th and 1, for the most part, he got the ball out. You know he's accurate. You know he's tough. You know that he puts in the time and the effort. There were other things that went into it with Shedeur Sanders, which is why he slid. But the other part that makes it challenging here is if you start either of these rookies. And I'm going to say it, either of these rookies, even though everyone's fixated on Shedeur. Dylan Gabriel's still the guy who went in the 3rd round.
Right.
Sanders went in the 5th.
Sure.
If you start either of these guys, then at some point, if you have to go away from them, you are, I won't say ending their career, because we've seen Bryce Young come back from a benching, but you are at minimum completely recasting the entire thing. It is way easier to roll with Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett, but Pickett's still not even healthy enough to do team drills, so I can't see how he's going to put himself in the mix to start. It's a lot easier to, at some point, go, okay, we're moving from Flacco and going to the rookie, and you get that initial burst. We saw it when Baker Mayfield took over in Cleveland. It was Thursday Night Football, and Tyrod Taylor, who has had the most wild series of ailments that have cost him starting jobs, he gets a concussion on a Thursday Night Football game. Baker comes in, immediately you see the jolt. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to start one of the rookies and then, man, we just need to settle this thing down. We're going to put Joe Flacco in now. We're going to put in Andy Dalton for Bryce Young. That's hard. It paid off for the Panthers, probably in ways that they didn't even realize at the time, because Bryce Young did need to go and sit. Not everybody reacts the same way that Bryce Young did, embracing that and leading through the adversity. And I'm not saying that Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders wouldn't. But especially when you consider the cultural phenomenon and the hysteria surrounding everything involving Shedeur, easing into this thing with Flacco and going to Shedeur is a lot simpler than going the other way. You got to play the best guy. You got to play the one that gives them the best chance to win. And let's see, maybe this week, instead of having a bumpy ride against the ones and then making plays against the 2s and 3s, maybe Shedeur gets to go up against the ones. I don't know if the Eagles are really going to play a lot of their guys, but maybe you get a little bit better exposure. Maybe you get a defense that throws more at you. There's still a ways to go in this thing, even as we want to overreact to what we saw on Friday night.
Of course. All right, let's continue talking about the Jaguars. Let's be honest. It was
first time that's ever been said on the history of the show, by the way. Which is why you drafted number 2 for Travis Hunter.
Ironically. Look, let's be honest. It was an underwhelming debut for the number 2 pick, and ultimately the Jaguars
so down on it.
Will regret trading up for Travis Hunter.
It's a lot they gave up. You're giving up next year's first-round pick. You're giving up, substantial draft assets. You are setting a really high bar. I said this to James Gladstone when I was in Jacksonville a few days ago. I'm like, all your fans now think you're going to be the riverboat gambler. You're going to be trading constantly and dealing first-round picks. And I do think that Gladstone's going to keep being aggressive here. But absolutely, the legacy, as much as, you're talking about legacy 6 months after these guys are hired, but for Liam Cohen and James Gladstone, a big part of what you're doing is going to be tied to that guy. Way too soon to overreact. I mean, underwhelming debut. we've never seen the things that Travis Hunter is going to be attempting to do. Nobody's scheming in that first game. You're seeing limited doses of the first string. You're just trying to get his feet wet. And again, they're figuring some things out logistically. Just where does he need to be on the sideline? Who needs to be talking to him? Coaches that normally might grab a guy after the series, before the series, whatever, now like, oh, nope, he's got to go over and do this other thing now too. There's a feeling out process that has to be taken into account. They have, Liam Cohen has talked to the coaches of Colorado, figuring out how they kind of did things there. Way too soon to say they're going to regret trading up for him. The bar is really high here, especially because, again, Travis Hunter is not just this year's first-round pick. He's next year's first-round pick. Time will tell on this. Let's see the body of work. And it might be bumpier early on just because no one ever logistically has tried to do what they're doing with Travis Hunter.
Body of work, 1 week. Let's react. Come on.
Let's see in real games. I'll be interested to see right out of the gate.
Like you get
Jacksonville's early season schedule.
Of course.
Carolina in week 1. So
here we go. Cover Tet. Let's go.
Let's find out. Do you want him covering Tet McMillan? Do you want him being covered by J.C.
Are we calling
Horn?
him T-Mac? He doesn't like Tet, right?
T-Mac, that's right. T-Mac. I interviewed him the other day. And I said Tetaroa, and then he pronounced it the way he pronounced it, and for the rest of the interview I called him T-Mac. I'm like, I can't quite roll that vowel.
I mean, we know there's only one
in there.
T-Mac, but, you know, TJ, we can call him T-Mac.
And he's good with it. He shouted out Tracy McGrady when Cam Wolf and I sat down with him on NFL Network. He understands where he's at. Really cool kid, by the way. T-Mac is a really cool kid, and he does some really awesome stuff on the field. He's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I kind of want him in fantasy. All right, so I would poo-poo Travis Hunter. All right, I get it. Look, we're overreacting. Here's one that's not, though, Tom, and I think you'll agree with this. This Micah Parsons thing, TJ, it's going to drag on into the regular season. I don't see this resolving anytime soon.
I'm not going to say it's an overreaction or it's not. I am going to say...
That's kind of the point of the segment.
I'm aware of the yes-no.
You know what I mean?
I would just say it might not be. Until... This is not a situation where, well, they're millions of dollars apart. They haven't talked.
How is that
possible? They haven't negotiated.
Settle down just a little bit.
Jerry's telling the fans, like, oh, this isn't something you need to lose sleep over. And apparently Jerry's not. But the opener is in 24 days.
Oh, yeah.
David Mulugheta, and this is not going to be a David Mulugheta Athletes First infomercial, okay? I promise you that. But I'll tell you, he's done over $1 billion in contracts this year. He is very reachable and accessible. There's some agents who, they'll go... I'll get calls from GMs like, why is this guy calling me back? I'll be like, oh, that's him. This is just what he does. Whether it's a ploy or he's just not by his phone. Well, the guy's going to call you back. He might be on vacation with his family, but you're going to get a call back. Yeah. And then the only conversations, to my knowledge, that have occurred between Micah's agent and the Cowboys have been Mulugheta calling and going like, hey, so whenever you guys want to work on this, like, we're ready. We're
Pay
over for
that
business.
man his money.
And the response has been nothing. And to the extent that Jerry thought he had a handshake deal back, and they talked, there's been some stuff out there about they were offering him close to $200 million guaranteed. That is, and Jerry alluded to something about almost the highest paid, the highest guarantee for any of these pass rushers is $123 million. That was Nick Bosa a couple of years ago. The idea that Jerry's just, I'll just throw in an extra $77 million. Yeah. That seems far-fetched, right? We can all agree. That's not going to be the case here.
You have got to be smoking something over there this morning.
It is going to be the highest contract, the biggest contract ever for a non-quarterback for a defensive player in NFL history. It shouldn't be a difficult deal to do. Garofolo was right when he came on earlier. It's like, we can just figure it out.
Yeah.
It's a $43 million per year deal. Jerry's going to want 6 years. Player's going to want 4. Maybe you get to 5. Maybe it goes to 4. We've seen it before. Same agency represents Dak Prescott. And that long deal became a short deal.
Yep.
And that's kind of how these things generally go. You could probably figure this out. All right, it's 4 years and $172 million.
TJ, I'll get you some FaceTime with Jerry tonight. You can work this out.
Guaranteed.
Might have to, man, because this is ridiculous. Because here's what's going to happen. The longer this goes, right, the higher the chance of an injury when he comes back. This is the makings of hamstring pulls and quad tears, Chris. Like, come on. We know what happens here, Tom, when guys sit out camp this long. The soft tissue injury happens, and then they're out an extra 4 to 6 weeks.
Perhaps we'll learn more tonight when we're at the premiere of the Netflix documentary, America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys.
I'm gonna have a contract printed with me, like money in the
August
bank,
19th.
Chris. I'm gonna have one in the briefcase.
Pull it right out.
Just pull it right
You
out.
should roll up with a briefcase tonight. That would be hilarious.
At this time last year, and I remember this, we were still very much in, they weren't anywhere on Dak, they weren't close on CD.
Right.
But they were talking. This is one of the things, I may have explained this on the show before, but there's a difference between contract talks and contract negotiations. Talks is, hey, we should do that contract. What do you think? Like, here's the comps I think, here's the comps I think. Negotiations is, here is our offer. Okay, here is our counteroffer. You are exchanging bargaining proposals. They have barely even talked. At no point has there been a true even contract talks, much less negotiations. They've never put anything in writing. They've never had a conversation of, hey, here's where we're going to come in. They're not there. It's not complicated. Jerry could decide tomorrow, I'm going to call up the agent and get the deal done. And I can tell you for a fact, Jerry last year would pull Dak aside, would pull CD aside. This is part of how he operates. Him and Belichick are really the only two who, if you ask veteran agents, those are the two guys who like negotiate behind agents' backs. Just how it always has been.
Right.
Jerry certainly has done that a number of times over the years. But in this case, Micah has made very, very clear, publicly, I am not going to be held to conversations that took place without my agent present. It's a very clear signal. Call my agent.
Makes sense.
Very accessible.
Makes sense.
He does a lot of deals. This is not a tooth-pulling situation. He's going to want the best deal. He's going to want all the money on the shortest deal. And that's fine. But, like, the market is clear. You got Myles Garrett was 40. TJ Watt, I believe, was 41. Mike is going to be somewhere in the 42, 43, $44 million range. And it's probably going to be a shorter deal. Because if you don't give him a shorter deal, Michael will just go, all right, I'll play this thing out. Or I'll demand to be traded. I'll sit out. So to answer your question, I think it's an overreaction to say it's going to extend into the regular season. But it's impossible to say that it's not an overreaction because they haven't even talked.
All right, last one before we finish here. Let's go AFC East here. I'm watching Miami play. Tua doesn't look good. Quinn Ewers was terrible. Tyreek Hill is on the trade block, maybe. Here's it. Everyone on the Dolphins is on the hot seat this year. Literally everyone. The whole team. All the coaches, everybody. Hot seat.
The way I would define hot seat is it usually falls into these buckets. There's like the perpetual like teams that no one trusts hot seat. First of all, I don't think it's an overreaction. But like the ones that are always clearly on the hot seat are if you either have not been to the playoffs or have not won a playoff game and it's been at least 3 years. Mike McDaniel, whose record, by the way, is very good when he has Tua as his quarterback. Not so good when they're plucking Snoop Huntley off a practice squad and rolling him out there like 8 days later. That's hard. That's hard on any coach. When he's had Tua, they've been pretty good. But last year was a regression from where they'd been those first 2 years. Both years when they went into the playoffs, they had major injuries. They did not have their quarterback 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now. Yep. They'd started Skylar Thompson in a playoff game. 2 years ago, Mostert was banged up. Tyreek was banged up. Last year, the whole thing was just kind of a mess. And you could see that. The mix wasn't good in the locker room, which is why they kind of rebuilt it in this offseason, moving on from guys like Jalen Ramsey, trying to create this culture of accountability that extends to Tua, publicly talking about Tyreek and the things he needs to do. And Tyreek saying flat out wild stuff like, yeah, for the first time in 4 years, I know the offense. He said that out loud with a microphone in front of him.
We should go heavy at the goal line. Like what?
From everything, I was there a week ago, from everything that I was told, there is an acknowledgement here. You start thinking about what's my legacy to my kids, what am I trying to accomplish at this stage of my career? And it sounds like that light bulb's gone on for Tyreek. If we get a couple weeks into the season and he says, I want out again, and the light bulb is not on, Tyreek will be on a different team during the season. But that's not their starting point. They went into this offseason going, we're going to trade Jalen, but we want to make this work with Tyreek. Both because, I mean, it would be heavily punitive from a cap perspective. They owe him a bunch of cash. Remember, they redid both those guys last year. They redid both contracts for Jalen Ramsey and for Tyreek Hill, extended both of them, made them highly paid players again, and then it went sideways for everybody involved here. So they wanted to work with Tyreek. And you see them bringing in the Darren Wallers of the world. You see them bringing in other veteran players trying to patch holes that they have in terms of the secondary, signing Jack Jones recently. Defensively, they got their rushers back. They think they've got a chance. But when it's been this long, and if you go 4 years without winning a playoff game, it's a pretty short list of coaches that survive that. So, yes, there's pressure on everybody there. And by the way, that extends to Tua Tagovailoa, too, who, if he has another injury, if he misses time, or if there's a coaching change,